The vanished Silk Road, unearthing oases and empires for thousands of years. A vast network of routes stretched across the heart of Asia, paths carved by the feet of merchants, monks, and nomads. This was the Silk Road, the lifeline that connected east and west, threading through deserts, mountains, and oases. It was more than a trade route. It was the world's first global highway, where ideas, inventions, and cultures met, mingled, and transformed civilization. But over time, this magnificent artery of exchange faded into sand and silence. The story of its rise and fall reveals how the shifting winds of empire and climate reshaped the course of human history. The Silk Road began not as a single road, but as a web of trails winding through some of the harshest terrain on Earth. Long before it earned its romantic name, it was a network of local paths linking farmers to villages and villages to kingdoms. Around 2,000 years ago, the Chinese Han dynasty expanded westward, seeking horses from the nomads of the Fergana Valley. Those horses were said to be so strong they could sweat blood, a poetic symbol of power and prestige. To secure them, the Han sent envoys deep into Central Asia. That quest for horses set the stage for the world's most famous route. Silk was China's secret treasure, made from the delicate threads of silkworm cocoons. It shimmered with an otherworldly beauty. For centuries, only China knew the secret of its making, and silk became as valuable as gold. To the Romans, it was a luxury beyond imagination. They called it siarecum, and Roman senators debated whether its allure was corrupting the empire. From the imperial courts of Rome to the palaces of Persia, silk became the fabric of power. But the Silk Road was not only about trade goods, it was about connection. Caravans left from the great city of Chang'an, today's Xi'an, laden with silk, porcelain, and spices. They crossed the Gobi Desert, passed through the Jade Gate, and entered a world of vast emptiness. There, in the midst of sandstorms and scorching winds, rose the oases, shimmering islands of life where traders could rest, water their animals, and exchange news from distant lands. Each oasis, Dunhuang, Turfan, Khotan, Kashgar, became a jewel in the desert, glowing with wealth and ideas. Dunhuang stood at the edge of the desert like a sentinel. It was the gateway between China and the West. Its caves, carved into the cliffs of Mogao, hold thousands of murals and manuscripts, silent witnesses of the travelers who once passed through. Monks, merchants, and scholars left traces of their worlds on these walls, depictions of Buddha, celestial beings, and travelers on camel caravans. Dunhuang's caves became a library of the Silk Road, preserving echoes of vanished voices. Beyond Dunhuang stretched the Taklamakan Desert, whose name means you go in, but you don't come out. Crossing it was perilous. Caravans skirted its edges, following routes north and south, guided by stars and ancient wells. Those who survived found refuge in the oasis cities like Khotan, famous for its jade, and Kashgar, a bustling crossroads where east met west. Kashgar's markets rang with the sounds of many tongues, Chinese, Persian, Turkic, and Arabic, all bartering, storytelling, and sharing the latest rumors of distant empires. In these oases, a miracle occurred. The mingling of civilizations. From India came Buddhism, carried by monks and pilgrims following the road to China. From Persia came art, music, and astronomy. From Greece and Rome came sculpture and philosophy. The Silk Road was a great river of culture flowing both ways from east to west and back again. Paper, invented in China, traveled westward, transforming knowledge and communication. Gunpowder, compasses, and silk went with it. In return, glassmaking, grapes, and new ideas of governance and faith flowed eastward. It was through the Silk Road that Buddhism entered China, shaping its art and thought for centuries. But the Silk Road was not just a highway of peace. Armies marched along it, too. Empires rose and fell upon its sands. The Kushan Empire, a forgotten giant of the 1st century, controlled much of Central Asia and northern India. It served as a bridge between civilizations, promoting trade and tolerance. Later, the Sassanid Persians, the Arabs, and the mighty Tang dynasty of China all vied for control of these lucrative routes. Wherever power shifted, the flow of commerce and culture followed. In the 8th and 9th centuries, the city of Samarkand became the glittering heart of the Silk Road. Under the rule of the Samanids, and later the great conqueror Tam, it rose as a jewel of Islamic architecture and science. Its blue-tiled mosques and madrasas shimmered beneath the desert sun. Astronomers charted the heavens, poets wrote of love and destiny, and traders from every corner of the known world filled its bazaar. To travelers, Samarkand seemed like a dream, an oasis where the riches of the world converged. But the Silk Road was always vulnerable to war, to politics, to the very climate it depended on. When empires fractured, the routes became unsafe. When rivers dried and oases dwindled, caravans vanished. In the 13th century, the Mongol Empire under Genghis Khan brought a temporary revival. His conquest united much of Eurasia under a single rule, creating what historians call the Pax Mongol. The road was safer than it had been in centuries. Marco Polo, the Venetian merchant, traveled through this empire and wrote of wonders that dazzled Europe, of Kublai Khan's court, of cities with paper money and bridges of marble. His stories ignited European imagination and ambition. Yet even the Mongols could not hold eternity. As their empire fragmented, new powers rose that turned their gaze elsewhere. The rise of maritime trade in the 15th century marked the beginning of the Silk Road's decline. European explorers, driven by the same desire for spices, silk, and gold, turned to the sea. Ships could carry more goods, faster, and with less danger. The world's center of trade shifted from desert caravans to ocean routes. One by one, the oases that had once pulsed with life fell silent. Climate, too, played its role in the Silk Road's demise. Shifting weather patterns and desertification dried up rivers and wells. Sandstorms buried towns, leaving behind only ghostly ruins. Cities like Nia, Loulan, and Miran, once vibrant with markets and temples, were swallowed by the sands of the Taklamakan. Archaeologists in the 20th century uncovered their remains, ancient wooden tablets, silk banners, and mummified bodies, preserved by the dry desert air. Each discovery whispered of lives abruptly forgotten when the desert reclaimed its dominion. The story of the Silk Road is not one of disappearance, but transformation. Though the caravans no longer trek across Asia's deserts, the legacy of the Silk Road endures in our global DNA. The exchange of ideas, art, science, and faith that once flowed along these routes shaped the modern world. Our languages, technologies, and even cuisines carry traces of that ancient connection. The pepper in your kitchen, the fabric on your clothes, the paper in your hand, all descend from that golden age of exchange. Today, nations once divided by deserts and mountains are rediscovering the importance of connection. Modern projects like China S-Belt and Road Initiative echo the Silk Road's ancient spirit, promising trade, cooperation, and shared progress across continents. But history reminds us that connection is fragile. The Silk Road thrived when there was peace, openness, and curiosity, and withered when fear and isolation took hold. Its rise and fall stand as a timeless lesson for humanity. Archaeologists continue to unearth the buried oases that once linked empires. In the sands of Xinjiang, the ruins of Loulan reveal traces of a cosmopolitan city that flourished 1,500 years ago, complete with canals, temples, and palaces. In Turfan, ancient manuscripts written in Chinese, Sanskrit, and Sogdian reveal a world where merchants from every corner of the earth could communicate through trade and trust. The Silk Road was a bridge not only between places but between minds. Each fragment of pottery, each faded mural, tells of a world that refused to be isolated. Pilgrims carried scrolls of scripture. Traders carried silk and jade. Travelers carried stories and dreams. Through them, humanity learned that no civilization thrives alone. The Silk Road was not merely a route, it was an idea. That the world, vast and varied, could be connected through exchange. In the great deserts of Central Asia, the wind still moves the sand over buried cities. Somewhere beneath lies the memory of empires that rose, traded, and vanished. To walk there today is to step upon the echoes of countless lives, of merchants and monks, queens and soldiers who once trusted the horizon and carried the world as treasures through the dust. The vanished Silk Road may no longer exist on the map, but its spirit endures wherever people seek understanding beyond borders. In the end, the Silk Road is a mirror, reflecting both the glory and the fragility of human ambition. It reminds us that progress is born from connection and decline from division. As we unearth the oases and empires of the past, we uncover not just ancient cities, but ourselves, our longing to explore, to trade, to learn, and to connect across the vast distances of the world. The Silk Road vanished beneath the sands, but its story lives on in every exchange of ideas, every spark of curiosity, and every journey that dares to bridge worlds once thought apart.